Good morning. It's 9:30. We appreciate you watching Minnesota Live. Operation Metro Surge is continuing this week after a federal judge declined to stop the surge of federal agents over the weekend. This means that the enforcement activities will continue to take place in Minnesota.
Just this morning in the news, we had a story about many immigrant-owned restaurants here that are closing or they're changing their hours, reducing them. So we wanted to bring in economics professor Tyler Schipper from the University of St. Thomas to talk to us a little bit about this, some other headlines that we're seeing in the news in the last couple of days. Nice to have you with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, always. Let's talk about the Operation Metro Surge. As mentioned, we just had this story this morning about like restaurants and businesses that are mostly immigrant run, having to kind of change the way they're doing business. And there's talk a little bit about the ramifications of this on the economy when you have, daycare shut down or restaurants closing down or, department stores, grocery stores, markets, those types of things.
Yeah, it's one of those things where there's these heart-wrenching local economy stories that don't necessarily ever show up in official data. Like you just have to drive down Lake Street here in Minneapolis or go to some of the surrounding communities and you'll see these stores that are shut down or you'll see lots of temporary hours signs posted. And ultimately these things will show up, just maybe not in big macroeconomic data, right? It means there's less tax revenue coming in, for instance. And if you combine that with some of the things that the Twin Cities is having to do it in terms of cops working overtime, for instance, that has local tax revenue effects that mean less services in the future. One of the things that maybe people could take away from these stories, though, is that if you are wanting to help out, this is a great opportunity to try something new. Go out and have Ethiopian food for lunch or try the Ecuadorian bakery. My kids were fans. My kids are really leaning in hard to this idea. We're going to go to a Mexican bakery, an Ecuadorian bakery, and try different things. And it's just a great way to support those businesses that we want to be here in the long term, but might be struggling right now because of everything that's happening.
Yeah, we've had a story about some sort of a push to put some kind of an eviction moratorium in place for people who aren't able to work, consequently not able to pay their rent.
Yeah.
That's another thing that could trickle up into the economy.
Absolutely. And those things are always tough, right? Because yes, we don't want people to lose their current housing, and that's really important. But also then it affects landlords down the line who also need to pay their bills
Tax
as
base,
well.
right.
And so those things all do end up adding up, but not in a way that we necessarily see in unemployment numbers or GDP numbers. And so as a macroeconomist, I always like that hard data, but right now that data is in stories that you hear people telling. And I'm glad you guys are having some of those stories told on the network.
Well, and it's not just impacting Minnesota. This is like impacting the country right now. All you have to do is look at the partial government shutdown in Washington.
It's like these dominoes that are toppling, right? And it's going to kind of come full circle with data here, which is, the images coming out of Minnesota then meant that there was some disagreement about ICE funding. And the way that this happened from the last shutdown that lasted 43 days, is that they actually went through a normal appropriations process where they passed these different bills for different parts of the government. Some of those got passed, some of those got held up because they involved ICE funding. And that's where the partial government shutdown is happening right now. It's looking like this is going to be resolved pretty quickly so that hopefully it doesn't turn into another one of those marathon government shutdowns that people feel really broadly and miss paychecks. But just because of this, we're going to get some delayed economic data again. So it's like 1, 2, 3 dominoes.
We had a story this morning that there was a report that was supposed to be coming out in the next couple of days.
The jobs report.
That's not going to be coming out now because of that.
There's a JOLTS report, which is another job market report that I believe was supposed to be out today. And then Friday is supposed to be the bigger jobs report, how many jobs were created. There's some uncertainty around that one, but bottom line is Monday and part of today, the people at the Bureau of Labor Statistics aren't doing the data collection that they're typically doing. And that can push everything back, which just means we don't have as much information about what is happening in the economy than we would like.
Can I ask you, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but with the funding bill that isn't being passed for ICE funding, right? It's only good through next Friday.
Yeah, so my understanding of this is what they're trying to do, and I think the president has endorsed this process, is that they have tried to separate. They've taken the Department of Homeland Security out from everything else, passed everything else, and then you're going to wait to try and negotiate some reforms for ICE in that Department of Homeland Security bill. Now, you're right. That sounds like a short timeline.
It buys them time to buy them time.
Buy them time again, so we could be here
yes.
again. Okay.
You're telling me that Congress is going to get anything meaningful done in a week or two? I'm skeptical of that, but I think just if DHS isn't getting its money, that's not a shutdown that's felt more broadly. And it doesn't even change probably what's happening with Metro Surge, because in the one big beautiful bill, there was already substantial appropriations there that it's not going to change any of the operations on the ground in Minnesota right now.
Another big story that came out is President Trump basically named the person who he wants to replace the Fed chair, Jerome Powell. I was interested in your analysis of this guy. He's not an interest lowerer, which I think is seeming to have been the big rub between Powell and President Trump.
Yeah, this has been like economists' favorite betting game lately. Who's it going to be? Who's it not going to be? We had 4 choices, so it made for a nice betting game because there was a finite number of choices out there. On one hand, I'd like the pick because it is somebody that has a history of being on the Federal Reserve Board, has the experience that you would need to be chair of the Federal Reserve. But you're absolutely right. It seems strange that this is a pick that, while he was on the Federal Reserve, on the Board of Governors, he actually was an inflation hawk, and he was much more focused on inflation, even at a time when the economy was struggling. This is the Great Recession. And so it seems like a strange choice if your goal is to actually lower interest rates quickly. Now, I would like to be a fly on the wall of whatever happened in those interviews. What did he say or talk to the president about what he would do as Federal Reserve Chair? We won't know that until May when he ends up being in there. But at least for now, I think markets were largely mollified by the fact that this seemed like a safer pick that maybe, at least on the surface, seems to have more independence than some of the people that might have come directly from the White House or directly from the business community.
All right, I think we've got time for one more question. I wanted to ask you about the big headlines last week with the huge drops in gold and silver prices.
Yeah.
Do we know what caused that? What does that do for the economy?
It's actually a combination of the fact that they had a huge run-ups in 2025. So silver was up like 160%, one of the top performing assets out there. Gold, 60%. So these were big drops, but big drops in the context of huge run-ups last year. And part of it was actually probably related to Kevin Warsh being the new pick, in that he's seen as probably more of an inflation hawk. And so the need to run to inflation hedges like gold and silver might have been a little bit less. Now, I still think some of these things might still run this year, because one of the things that's happening is that people are less secure about the dollar. So a lot of central banks are starting to hold more gold and silver as alternative reserves instead of just holding dollars. And that's been one of the things, along with the chaos in the world, that's been pushing those prices up. And I would not be surprised if they continue to go up, just not like they did last year. I think it would be hard to repeat 160% 2 years in a row.
Sure. Oh, that makes sense.
Well, Tyler, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Your insight.
Next time you're going to come, you could bring some of those baked goods with you that you and your family pick up.
From the Ecuadorian bakery.
Well, I'm hoping next time you have Ronnie on, he says that I am his favorite part of the show. I was hurt when we were talking earlier. He just
didn't even mention you.
He didn't mention me. It was all about trivia.
He's a great kid, isn't he?
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Absolutely.
Hey, you can keep up with economics headlines by watching 5 Eyewitness News every day, starting, of course, at 4:30.